Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Spencer. Glad to be here.
An absolute pleasure to have you on. So, if we could just start with a bit of a brief introduction to yourself and to the business, please.
Yeah, so I'm the founder and CEO of the Well Recruiting Solutions. We're about a year and a half old company that specializes in helping wealth management firms hire the talent that they need to hit their revenue goals.
Perfect. So, we've had a bit of a brief introduction to ourselves prior to the podcast. And you've actually told me a lot of great insights about your previous career in the corporate world and things like that. So, I wanted to dive into that first things first, and actually what sparked that transition from like an eight-figure career in the corporate world to starting your own business and entrepreneurship in general.
Yeah. Well, I actually started out in entrepreneurship. My first job was working for a small business, commercial salmon fishing out in the ocean in Alaska, where I grew up. And I remember at the end of that season, getting my paycheck, which was good. I think it was like $3,000 for a 14-year-old kid for a month's worth of work, which was, amazing. But we worked 120 hours a week, and I did the math, and I'm like, all right, we caught this much salmon per day, and the price of salmon is this much, and holy smokes, the owner made a lot of money. I want to be the owner. And so the next summer, I started what would be Perry Pavement Services, which was an asphalt maintenance company that I ran all through high school and college. I paid my way through high school and college with that. And so my entrepreneurship journey started early on. But my senior year of college, I started as a financial advisor at New York Life Insurance Company. Again, my own business, my own clients, helping them do their insurance investments, retirement planning, which I did that for almost 5 years. But ultimately, I got to the point, Spencer, where I didn't want to live in Alaska anymore. It was small. I was a very social person, so I felt like I knew everyone there, and I knew that my wife didn't live there, and that was really what I was interested in finding. And so I ended up finding my wife in Colorado. She moved back to Alaska, but she said, if I move back to Alaska, you got to get me out of here. So I did not want to start my business over as a financial advisor somewhere else in the United States, because back then there wasn't Zoom. I couldn't keep my clients. I had to give my clients up and go start over. So I went into the corporate side of things and moved into a management career path where my job switched from building my own business to helping recruit, develop, and coach and train financial advisors. And by God's grace, and I had a lot of success in it. I was the youngest partner in the whole company, youngest senior partner, youngest managing partner. A couple of months after my 30th birthday, I was given my own firm to run in West Texas. So that moved us out of Alaska. I was given a small firm. In fact, I left a team of 40 advisors, and I was given an entire firm of only 40 advisors. And so it was a little bit of a lateral move, but I got out of Alaska. So we moved there, and over 2.5 years, again, by God's grace, we were able to grow that company or that firm to almost 100 people in 2.5 years, which then, kind of put my name on the map, and I was on the top of the list to get a bigger opportunity. So that moved us up to Minnesota, and I ran the Minnesota office. It was about 120 people for a handful of years. And to your question, Spencer, why did I leave that, right? So if I looked up and I was like, I'm 37 years old, I make $900,000 a year. If I just stay on this path for the next 20 years, I'll probably make $30-40 million. But I will look back at 60 years old and say, I wish I would have left and tried to do my own thing. And it'll be too late at that point in time. And so through a lot of prayer and just alignment with me and my wife, we felt God leading us to step out from that career and step out in faith and build something. And so I always swore I would enter the acquisitional entrepreneurship model. It's too hard to build from scratch. And so I found a firm that I thought I was going to buy. And the week before I ended up leaving New York Life, that deal fell through. And I literally left and didn't know what I was going to do. And I interviewed at one place. I interviewed at an $800 billion wealth management firm, which had, international, gigantic. In fact, we just got the contract today, very close to becoming our clients now. And I interviewed with the chief talent officer there, so the head person of this huge company, and I shared a lot of this with her. 5 minutes into the interview, she's like, I'm just gonna stop you right there. You're too talented, you're too entrepreneurial to work for anybody. You have to start your own business. And that was the one and only interview that I did. And so that started me on the journey to ultimately starting the Well Recruiting Solutions.
It's quite a extensive career that you've had up to this point, and it takes a lot of courage to actually step out of that security and step into that uncertainty of entrepreneurship. I think a lot of people see it as an attractive solution to many people's problems, but they don't see the endless nights with no results, banging your head against the wall, and it's like anything. Everyone's a overnight success, but they don't see the many years prior to that. So what did you have to draw on from your past experiences, your past roles in your career to actually get you through to where you are now and building a successful business within wealth management and things like that?
Yeah, great question. So I'd say, a few things. One of them, right when I started the company, my pastor gave me a book called Lead with Prayer. And it was interesting. I've read a lot of self-help books, leadership books, spiritual books, through the years. And it was the author, who's actually become a friend of mine, Ryan Skoo. He went and interviewed all of these leaders of, gigantic nonprofits in Burma and Africa and like multi-billion-dollar hedge fund managers. And he asked them all one question. He said, "Tell me about your prayer life." And every single one of them said that they started each day with 2 hours of prayer. I'm like, man, that's a long time to be sitting there praying to the man upstairs. But I mean, you can't argue with their success. And so that's something that we committed to, is making a prayer foundation. Now, I'm not saying I pray 2 hours every day, but that's a foundation of our company. And so that was, obviously the foundation of that started years and years and years and years out of faith that my parents gave me, or I inherited from them and developed my own. That's been huge. So I, for years, took people out of corporate America that were sales managers, operations leaders, sales leaders, that said, hey, I want to build my own business, and help them build financial services practices under the New York Life brand. And so like basics from blocking and tackling, how many phone calls do I need? Like, how do I create an ICP? How do I get a hold of these people? How do I set appointments? What's a sales process look like, right? I had to wear that hat now. In fact, to this date, like, I've been the only one that's sold for our company. All of our contracts currently are from me. Now I have a sales team, and we've been working really hard at it for about the last 4 months, but that's a long-term investment to build a pipeline from scratch. So, taking that sales training that I had given other people and wearing that myself. Recruiting, right? I mean, that's what we do. We recruit. And so, I recruited the hardest thing in the world, commission-only life insurance salespeople, for years and years and years and years. So I took that mentality and was like, if we can do that, we can do anything. But I've taken that. Internal recruiting, building our own team, right? Finding talent. And I would say that's probably been the biggest mindset that I've had going into this, Spencer. I didn't get into this to build a lifestyle company. You hear the 5-hour work week, 10-hour work week, 2-hour work week. What is it? Tim Ferriss. I don't remember how many hours you're supposed to work on his plan, but that's not what I'm building. Like, we're building an empire. We're building $1 billion organization. And so a couple things come with that, right? First, the mindset coming in, everything has to be scalable. It can't be, Steve needs to do this, right? It's got to be 10 people need to be able to do this when we expand. So as soon as I saw myself wearing a hat in the company, I thought about who is the next person to take that hat off, right? And I would go recruit them and figure out, well, you got to get scrappy, right? I don't have oodles of money to pay people. And quite candidly, equity's not on the table. Like, that's why I left, was for equity. And so we got to figure out creative ways to get talent into our organization. But those are just a lot of the different things and the different skill sets that I took from my previous career that's transitioned to this.
No, absolutely. And I think building an internal team, like you just mentioned there, is crucial. Building out a culture as well along with that team is also really crucial as well, because not allowing people to be individual and having an identity within the business is a detriment to the growth of the company as a whole. Because we look at growing out people's businesses and helping them grow, but we look at it from a professional, high-performing team standpoint. So imagine a soccer team, we call it football here in the UK.
Yeah.
For the best teams in the world, they have the best players from all over. Different cultures, different backgrounds, and they come in and their individuality, their style, their creativity allows that team to be the best in the world. And that is exactly the thing in business. And that when you were speaking about hiring internally and being able to scale the systems and things, that's all about hiring the right people at the right time to do the job properly. And in the day, that all feeds back into you as a business owner, and you're the one in control of that culture as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that creating who we want to be from day one, which we did through the identification of our mission, vision, and values, has been what's driven that culture. So like every meeting we have, Spencer, we talk about what's our mission. Like someone reads our mission and tells what does that mean to them. Someone reads our values or our vision and what that means to them, and then values and what that means to them. And then we tell stories. Like we will not move on to the agenda of the meeting until 3 or 4 people have told a story of how they've seen our mission, our vision, or one of our values lived out in what they're doing day in and day out inside of the company. And so that, we've done a lot of things, but with that has reinforced that culture of our values.
Got you. I understand. So in terms of like the wealth management side of things, obviously you work with rather large wealth management companies. Where did that come from in terms of choosing those guys to work with, be prospects, be clients, be part of your team? Where did that decision come from, basically?
Yeah, so I mean, you've heard the phrase a million times, right? The riches are in the niches. And so I knew we had to specialize. I knew we had to find where our unique value proposition was. And so it's like, I would say it's super niche, but it's probably $100 million, maybe $150 million opportunity annually. So I came from the world where people would start with a life insurance and health insurance license, and they would sell life insurance to their friends and family, and then they would get their investment licenses, and they would be able to sell investments and manage people's portfolios and retire, and they'd move up the scale, right? Ultimately, they become full-blown financial planners. But in that world, they wear every hat: prospecting, business development, marketing, sales, closing, service, customer service, operation, everything. Not everyone is meant to do that, but for decades, that was the traditional financial advisor. Whatever title, there's a lot of different ways they hold themselves out, but financial advisor. In the last 5 to 10 years, there's been the rise of private equity-backed investment advisors or financial advisors, where they didn't come from the traditional, they're like, this is how business is done. You have a marketing department, you have a business development department, you have a service department, you have there's all these specialties. And so what they've done is all of these hats, these traditional financial advisors role, they've broken that up into like 4 or 5 different roles. And these two don't know each other exist. I mean, they do in theory, but they don't have a connection to them. And what these people need, just like every company, they need more salespeople. But in this industry, the salesperson has to have a securities license. Well, where are all those people with securities license? They're all over here. And I know how to find them. Our company has a process and a system to find these people. And a lot of these people should not be wearing all these hats. They should wear this hat or this hat or this hat. And so these companies here, they're missing out on millions of dollars of revenue because they can't sell anymore because they don't have enough people with the right licenses and sales skills. These people are drowning because they're wearing all these hats and are making nowhere near as much net income as they could be. We're the bridge between the two of those.
Got you. It makes complete sense. And I think I watched a podcast not so long ago, and it's got Stephen Bartlett in it. It was about where he put his business on the stock market. Mm-hmm. And he put it on a certain stock market, and it was a certain valuation, and then someone told him to put it on at the German or the Japanese market, and I think it went up by tens of millions of dollars. It's about going to the niche that's going to be most profitable for you. Mm-hmm. You can go and do the same service and provide the value to those guys and get a certain amount of money back. Yep. So you can go do it somewhere else and someone will pay you 10x. Yep. So it's all about identifying where your services are best placed, yep, and where you can bring the most value. So on that point then, in terms of the recruiting solution, things like that, what makes you guys different to everyone else in the recruiting space, do you think?
Yeah, I would say specifically in that niche, we're really, really good because I understand both of those worlds. I've trained my team to understand both of those worlds, and we've built a high-touch outbound process. The model of post and pray, which I see as some of our competitors, like they just post the job on the job boards and they pray the right people respond. Well, we know that about 80% of candidates are coming from proactive outreach. They're passive. They're working somewhere else. They're dissatisfied, but they haven't told anybody. And if a recruiter calls them to have a conversation with them, they're open to that conversation. We do that. I have an outbound team that can make a couple thousand outbound calls a day. Most recruiting firms, they're not doing that. That's a lot of hard work. It's a pain in the butt. No one wants to do that. So I would say that's one of the things that makes us different. The other thing I would say is our tech stack and our data stack. I've invested multiple six figures into buying all of the data of every single one of the potential prospects for these clients right here and how to get them. And that's a big investment. Like, we're all in on this industry, and for an individual firm to do that, there's no budget for that. Like, to build their own TA department that's going to do that, they have to be a huge firm. A recruiting company to do that, they just don't know the space like I do, coming from both of those. So every one of our competitors, Spencer, that is in this space is in the M&A game. They're trying to get big teams of financial advisors to move to another big firm. And there's big money in that, but the sales cycle's 12, 18 months long. I'm a startup. I gotta be close to the cash. I can't wait that long. I don't have that much time to invest in it. So we've taken the niche of finding just individual producers and moving them, which is, a third, a tenth, a 20th of the payout, but we can do it many times a month, and we've built a machine to do that.
Brilliant. And you just mentioned being a startup there. You also told me in our previous discussion that it's been completely bootstrapped from day one. So bootstrapping a business brings its own challenges, trades, but also gives you something else that VC-backed companies don't.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through what it's been like being bootstrapped and what sort of mentality that has given you to push on and be the company that you are today?
Yeah. We have to be completely scrappy and hungrier than anybody else. And I didn't say that, but that's one of the things I say to prospective clients is we're just hungry. Like, I don't know how I'm going to pay payroll next month. The work that we're going to do this month is going to pay payroll next month. And so you better believe we're going to get the job done, because it's literally depending on that. There's no cushion. So we're hungry. I haven't taken a paycheck. My last paycheck was a $30,000, $40,000 paycheck from New York Life when I left October 1st of 2023. So I'm motivated, right? And by God's grace, we haven't missed payroll. Everyone's got paid in our company. And so those kinds of things, they resonate, because most of our clients are under 100 employees. They're 5 to 100 million in revenue. We're talking to the CEO, the founder, the owner. They understand, like I can level with them, like they understand that. And they're like, I want that kind of firm working for us and representing us in the marketplace. We only get good people. We are a very faith-forward company, and you do not have to have the same faith as us to work here, but you probably have a faith, which any study is going to say, like, that typically makes you a more conscientious, personal development, growth-minded person. And you have to have that, because we're not paying the most. There's no big signing bonuses here. There's opportunity, because as we grow, the people we're going to reward are the people who are here to help us grow in the beginning. But the type of people in our organization are growth-minded. They see the big picture. They want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and they're not risk-averse. That's who's serving our clients. So those kinds of things are some of the things that we have to consider as we're growing. But we have to be scrappy with the money we spend too. But it has to get us a return. Every dollar has to be accounted for. If it's not producing revenue, meaning finding us clients or helping us find candidates for our clients, it doesn't stay.
No, it makes complete sense. You've got to have an ROI on everything, I suppose. And another thing that what I was thinking about when you were speaking there is the agility standpoint of being a startup and being a bit of a smaller team. Like you say, you've got to think a little bit quicker. You've got to think about things a little bit differently, and that in itself gives you way more agility, and the pace that you do things has to be done at a higher level. And like I say, you don't have to go through 1,000 hoops to get a decision done. And it's just all about speed and precision at this standpoint. And when you actually speak to businesses, and you're telling them that you're dealing with me directly, and we have to get this done. This is like a dual partnership. So, and they can feed off that energy. And if you go to some larger businesses, and you just another cog in the corporate wheel of their business, you get caught up and you get passed down to an account executive. You don't really get that hands-on experience that you get with a small team. And I think that's how smaller businesses like mine, like yours, stand out from the crowd. It's all about that personalized experience. At the end of the day, in the B2B world, like it's all about personality and people by people. And if you can get your personalities across as well as back it up with results, I think you're on to the winner.
Yeah. Super well said, Spencer. I'm gonna add some of that to my value prop. That's great language. Can I give you like a real-time example of a pro and a con of that agility?
Please do.
All right, so I don't know if I mentioned this before, but recruiting is not new. Staffing and headhunting companies are not new. They've been around forever. I never worked at one. I've never been in one. My business partner, who's our COO, never done that. So we've built this company, for better or worse, from a business owner's perspective of what makes sense? What makes sense around fulfillment and technology and sales and business development? Not because it's always been done in the recruiting and staffing world this way, but because this is just what makes sense. That's helped us in a lot of areas. It's also hurt us in a lot of areas. So, we live rec to rec. Company says, hey, we need to hire this position. Great, let's go find that. Let's place it, and then we get paid a commission on that. In the month of March, we did not place a single rec, which means, we had money coming in from March, from February, but that means in April, last month, we got no revenue coming in unless we hustle. And so my partner and I looked up after 3 weeks and we're like, my goodness, we've got a team of talented people, but none of them are veterans from this industry. They don't we didn't know how, what are the KPIs? How many candidates do we need to source per job? How many should go to first interview? How many should we submit? How many we didn't know any of that. And so our team was just kind of running on, do your best. And so we looked at each other and I'm like, we have to hire someone who's got, 8-10 years worth of experience in direct hire, permanent placement recruiting. We'll teach them the wealth management, but they have to lead our team so we can start to formalize all of our KPIs. So that conversation took place on Friday. Saturday, I spent a bunch of the day building out all the expectations of the role, made the job posting, put it up. I had 800 applications by Monday morning. By Wednesday, we had interviewed the top 5 candidates. By Thursday, we had done multiple interviews on the final 2 candidates and got a job offer out, which was accepted on Friday, and the person started on Monday. So that's 8 days to hire, probably a director level hire that only a startup can do. And she is a rock star. She is amazing, okay? That's the positive side of it. So here's the side a lot of people don't talk about. I knew in doing that, I had a couple very talented people in our organization that started with us a year prior and had gone through all the ups and downs, and they were leadership. One of them was leadership caliber, a person. She just didn't have the experience that we needed specifically to be successful. And in bringing this leader in, they would be inserted above her in the org chart. And I knew she wasn't gonna like that. And I had to do it anyways. And there was no right way. I've sat down with her, I told her we were doing it. I said, this is why we need to do this. She got to interview her boss. So she interviewed this person to pick the person she wanted to be her boss. And 2 weeks later, she resigned after a year and being one of our key people. And before she resigned, we had the opportunity to apologize and say, I know this didn't feel good. I know that, you wanted this role. We had to do this for the company. And she ended up resigning. And I knew that was a risk bringing that person in. We lost an incredibly talented person who's going to be a great find for someone else. It did not end like I wanted it to by any means, but it was looking back, I wouldn't have changed anything because we had to do that because 30 other people aren't getting a paycheck if we don't fill any recs. And so we had to make a change there. So that's just a very real life, very recent example of how the agility of being a startup can be amazing, but it can also be, very challenging too.
No, absolutely. It's like anything, isn't it? There's no rough without the smooth. And unfortunately, sometimes people's jobs on the line. But you made that decision, which was a decision really for the best interest of the business, not or something else. So that in itself takes serious skill and courage. Again, we talked about courage at the top of the podcast, and you've got to be able to make those decisions, even when sometimes it's at the detriment of someone else. I don't think it's very hard to explain and express what that's like to someone that's not done it or been in that situation, because it's a very unique feeling and process. I've only had to do it once myself, and I don't wish it on anyone, because it's someone's livelihood at the end of the day. And I've been in a similar position where, as an engineer, working for Lightsource BP, managing a rather large solar farm project in Australia. Thought I was going to see the project out. Something happened. Someone came in and took my role. I dropped down, and again, it's not very nice to see, but you've got to do what you've got to do in that scenario. So yeah. Big props for getting that done, because I don't envy you at all.
No. I mean, but that's what you sign up for.
Yeah, 100%. But in terms of being an entrepreneur, then, I want to try and sell entrepreneurship.
Yep.
A lot of people, they're on one side or the other. So, if you were starting out and you were fresh off the boat, what would you say to people trying to get into entrepreneurship? What sort of skills would they need to go through to be able to start a business?
Well, first off, I don't know, I'll answer that. Like, let me sell entrepreneurship. I went on 18 trips last year. I was Delta Diamond because of all the money we spent, and so I played first class everywhere. I have some of the most amazing clients and get to talk to CEOs all day long. When I get my first paycheck, I will make as much as I made in a year and a month. All of that is coming down the road. So I know this is a calculated sacrifice. There's a lot of very difficult decisions that need to be made, but it's for an amazing payoff, a lot of which I've already experienced. I don't miss any of my kids' game. I coach my daughter's basketball team 3 times a week. My office, we have 18 golf simulators here. I hit a golf ball for an hour a day. My handicap was a 17 after last season, and now it's a 2.4. So that's TrackMan. So I don't know what it's gonna come when but that's all fun. Those are all important things to me. I love it. I love that. The skill sets you need to have, though, is you got to be ready to not take a paycheck for a long time. And if you don't have the money to do that, you got to have a spouse. You got to have an investor, right? But be careful with investors. How many stories have you heard of the founders who sold their company for $100 million and they split $6 million of that? That's not a very good ROI. So you got to be careful with that. Maybe you need I have a buddy who started his company, and 2 years in had to go get a W-2 job for 2 years on top of running his company, and he just quit that 2 weeks ago, and now he's all in again. But those are the sacrifices that need to be made. If you do have money, how far are you going to go, right? My wife and I had about $1 million in the bank when we started this. We don't have $1 million in the bank anymore, and we had to have very real conversations on how low are we going to go, and we're about there. So these are all very real conversations and things you need to have to be prepared. I haven't heard of very many partnerships that have worked out where people go into business together. And I am so blessed. I have an incredible partner. I wanted him from day one, but candidly, Spencer, I did not want to split the company 50-50. And so I had to build it by myself for about 5 months. And I did. Well, me and ChatGPT built it for about 5 months. I had a dozen reoccurring clients. I had a few team members, and we had an MVP going. Then I could go into this guy and said, hey, here's what I've got. I'd like to bring you in. And so then, it wasn't 50-50. But I had to put that work in and chance it. And now he's aerospace engineer turned fintech COO, the exact opposite to me, and we're an amazing partnership together, right? That's something we would not be anywhere near where we are today. I get to work at my strength, he gets to work at his strength. So those are a lot of things that I think, why do you want to do it? And then getting into it, what are some of the things you need to be prepared for? Brilliant.
Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast, but before I let you go, where can the listeners, the audience find you? Are you on LinkedIn? Are you on social? Have you got a website? where can they go and find you guys?
Yeah, so thewell.solutions. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I post way too much, so if you don't want to listen to me, don't follow me on LinkedIn. And then, if you happen to be in the wealth management industry in the US, go to hirethewell.com, and that will have the top 10 interview questions you should be asking your candidates, and also a good way to connect with us. So thanks for listening. Thanks for having me, Spencer.
As always, at all, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks again.